To call the meeting to order, please. This is a special joint meeting of the Ojai City Council and Planning Commission, February 19th, 2014. Members of the public wishing to address the Planning Commission on items appearing on the agenda are requested to complete a speaker's card. We have a number of them here. They're out in the lobby. And file it with the secretary prior to the start of the meeting. Cards are available in the lobby. Speakers should state their name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Comments must be directed to the commission, not the audience. While the Planning Commission is in session, all in attendance are expected to maintain order and decorum and to obey the orders of the chair. Could we have roll call, please?
Mayor Strobel. Present. Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Blatz.
Here.
Clapp.
Here.
Laura.
Here.
And Chair Merck.
Here.
And Commissioner Foster.
Here.
Nicklin.
Yeah.
Jagiello. Here. Zabilla.
Here.
And Vice Chair Crabtree and Commissioner Nolan are absent. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Foster, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Normally at this point in a meeting, we would have the public communications, but that is going to be deferred until after we're done with our joint meeting with the City Council, just in case we have several speakers cards for people on the public communications part. We have one item on this joint meeting, which is a concept review, CR 1302, for a request to modify an existing CUP number 00-4 and subdivide 12 legal lots located at 701 North Montgomery Street and Olive Street. Could we hear from staff on this, please?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council and chairman and members of the commission. I just wanted to make a brief explanation of one thing, and that is the council has recently expressed an interest in reviewing the way we staff our planning department and use consultants and so forth. And so now that we have a full-time community development director on board, I've taken a number of projects that were being handled by consultants back in-house, including this one. And so the reason there isn't a consultant here making the presentation and our community development director is for that reason. In the near future, we'll have a council agenda item to talk about staffing of the community development department, and the council will be making decisions on what we do going forward.
Madam Mayor, could I just make a quick comment? I wanted to thank Mr. Clark for taking the role of accomplishing that. It was something of discussion, and it happened swiftly, and I think it's for the betterment of the department, so thank you.
Shall I go ahead with the presentation? All right. Good evening. So I guess I have a brief statement to make too, which is, apologies for bringing information to you kind of late, and I understand that that's something that shouldn't occur on a regular basis, but because of the switch between consultant to myself and my review of the project, I felt there was some additional information that needed to be provided to you, and that may have some bearing on how this meeting goes forward in the workshop. So with that, I was going to give you a brief presentation from the staff report here. And I just want to read into the record some brief facts about the project. This is a concept review for a request to modify existing CUP number 004 and subdivide 12 legal lots located at 701 North Montgomery Street and at Olive Street. I think that it's important to note that there is some background to this project and that it had this previous approval, and that that has some bearing on how we need to review this project as to what elements of the previous approval are being asked to be modified. So with that, I guess everyone knows the project site. I'd be happy to get more detail if that's requested of me, but I'll just move on to the project description. The project includes two primary components: revise the currently approved CUP number 004 to reduce the total authorized build-out of the senior living facility to 90 assisted living units with a maximum of 98 senior residents. The 19 additional units that would be established with this modification would be created by dividing existing buildings, for example, 2 bedrooms into larger 1-bedroom units, so the existing square footage of the facility would not increase. Also, the second component is to reconfigure the lot lines of the 12 legal lots using a tentative track map to establish 7 or 8 single-family lots in one lot encompassing the entire existing senior living facility. The existing drainage lot located north of the facility would remain unaffected. The proposed subdivision will result in a net reduction of legal lots that exist on the site at this time, and the newly created single-family lots would be sold as custom home sites.
Excuse me?
Uh-huh.
What home? Second home?
I'm sorry, am I talking too fast? Sorry. I'm sorry. The proposed subdivision will result in a net reduction of lots, and the newly created single-family lots would be sold as custom home sites. Okay? As part of their proposal, they propose to present design guidelines that would accompany each one of these custom home lots. So although they'd be sold to individuals and not one developer, they would have design guidelines that would accompany them. So with that said, I think we just move into the options that are proposed by the applicant. And rather than me reading those into the record, I think we can open those for discussion or maybe have the applicant present their options. But I think the table under Table 2 summarizes the options fairly well and gives you sort of the benefits and pros and cons of each one of the options. I do note that I did give you a memo tonight that sort of has some points of clarification, and let me read that, let me present that into the record. And that was one of the things that we had here was within your memo that was given to you ahead of time was a proposal for a rezone, but that was an error on staff's part. Density is stated specifically in the zoning ordinance that it's to be calculated on the gross acreage, not the net acreage.
What is the difference?
Minus streets, parks, those types of things is a difference between gross and net. So, you know, like a typical lot within an already existing street system is net. Subdividing like a vacant parcel where you may be asked to provide streets or parks or drainage, that's the difference. So with that said, we no longer feel that that's an issue. The rezone is off the table, so we're not going to be considering that tonight because the 2.8 acres they have in gross acreage would net them either one of the proposals that they want tonight. So we're going to ask you to not even consider that, and that's what's presented in my memo. And we also have items in the staff report that talk about traffic and tree preservation. And I think the most important out of them is the tree preservation, because with the applicant's proposal there on option B and C, they're presenting to you tonight that they would be requesting a variance to lot width in order to accommodate some preservations of some trees. And so with that, I just think that in my memo, I point out to you that that's one of the things you need to consider tonight is whether a person who's subdividing bare land could really meet the findings for a variance. And so whether that's really appropriate when subdividing. And so I give you the definition in here in this memo of what a variance is really intended to do. And a variance is really intended to address issues of an existing lot that may have limitations to it, such as topography, those types of things where it actually inhibits a person's right to enjoyment of their property. And in this case, there's no let's say, no right for them to have 6 or 7 or 8 lots. You know, those are maximums in the zoning ordinance. So if they needed, so the consideration would be if they needed to preserve 2 trees, you could also request them to just make wider lots and configure them and in such a way as they went around the trees may result in a loss of lots to them. But that's kind of the option that you would have, whether or not you decided you wanted preserved trees or that what you felt that was a thoughtful way to subdivide this property. You wouldn't necessarily have to grant a variance. You could just have the lot lines adjusted around the trees. So that's one of the other issues that I placed in my memo before you tonight. And ultimately, I think the last one I think that we need to consider is, and I apologize, I think we got a lot of information at the last minute here, is the previous approvals. Those were not given to you, and they were given out tonight. And the previous approvals, which is Resolution 01-2, which was for CUP 004, specifically calls out that this project was originally approved with some exceptions to rules based on them being granted a density bonus for senior residential units. And now with the request of them to eliminate those units, then I ask that you consider whether that's an appropriate modification of this project, and if so, how do we address the issues that exceptions were granted based on them actually completing this project with senior units. And with that, I think also in the staff report, we do detail out the questions that the applicant themselves have asked you to answer. And so I will defer those to the applicant for the applicant to ask you that. And if I have, and I'm open to any questions or points of clarifications you may have at this time regarding this presentation.
Madam Mayor, would you mind giving us about just 2 or 3 minutes to glance through this?
Oh, fine.
I would really like that. Does everyone else agree that they'd like time? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question while we're waiting. My question has to do with parking. If the existing senior facility is placed on its own lot, which is part of what's being suggested here, does it meet the parking requirements? Or in the beginning, when they, in 2001, I noticed that there was a parking lot included in the proposed expansion, and my question is, was that parking lot to meet parking standards? As it exists, if it were divided off, would it have its required parking?
So my understanding from the applicant is that there is some additional parking needed. If they didn't build the parking lot that was approved with it, and they just cut it off the way it is now, they would need to accommodate a few additional parking spaces, which I believe that in their proposal, they believe they can do that with some modifications to the existing parking lot.
And they're also on that parcel, and I'm not sure, and I visited the site this afternoon. I ran into Mayor Pro Tem Smith at the site, so we were walking around there. But I believe it's Tico Road, which is at the most northerly end of the property. That's undeveloped. It's basically just an easement.
Mm-hmm.
Where was I going with that? I have no idea.
Pretty interesting.
Was it? Yeah.
No, you just wanted to clarify, it's just an easement. That's what the vote decided it must be.
Yeah, I guess that was.
Okay, yes, it is. It's not, yes. Let's just
It's
leave it at
just
that,
an
yes.
easement,
Mhm.
never been developed.
Right.
And there was there another piece of, a certain amount of the easement for Olive would be abandoned or turned, or that would be a private drive?
Depending on which option they chose, yes. They've got a couple different options that present different ideas regarding the development of roads. Mhm. So under one of the options, I believe it's option A, you would have public street with cul-de-sac, And then private streets north of Park Avenue with a hammerhead for options B and C.
One last question. Would the property owners need that easement, which I think is, and forgive me if I'm wrong on these numbers, but 149 feet
Excuse me,
in
Madam
width
Mayor.
and 50?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but it's hard to have these questions asked now when I'm trying to read this, because you may be asking questions that I would benefit from that I'm not hearing when I'm trying to read this. So is there a chance that we can
Sure.
maybe hold off? That'd be great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the patience of everyone in the audience. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I apologize again, but I think that we've got a problem here. We've been handed a how many page document that is the original CUP that we have not had the benefit of reviewing, and we've been handed a new potential CUP to review with no time and ability to compare the two to get any context of this proposed development. I propose that this be continued to a date certain.
I agree. This is brand new to me.
There's just no way that anybody can really give a sound, educated opinion on this project under these circumstances.
I would propose that we have another meeting at
Yeah.
a later date.
Yeah, I think
for
that
this
would be.
specific
Yeah,
topic.
I think that would be great, because
it's just impossible.
I think it's unfair to the applicant and unfair to everyone to be expected to discuss a project when a huge portion of this particular project was missing from our packet.
Can we have the applicant do their presentation, though? Because
Yeah,
I
I'd
think
love
that
to see
information will be
That
helpful.
would be great. I'd love to see that, yeah.
So what I'm hearing is I'd like to make a motion that we hear the applicant tonight, but that we could, I'd like to make a motion that we hear the applicant tonight, but then we postpone we table this item for a near future agenda when when the council and planning commission have had time to review the previous CUP and where we're at, so we were being more able to give intelligent answers. Second, anyone?
Second.
All those in favor?
I have a dozen speaker cards here for
Yeah, I'd
this
love to
meeting
hear the
tonight, so.
speakers too.
No, I would like to make sure we hear from
I
the
think that
public
would
as
be
well.
great.
Yeah,
Oh, speaker
Yeah.
on this item.
yeah, on this item.
That'd be great.
So,
May I make a
you may.
As far as the motion, tabling it, I think we have a lot of people here that would like to speak. As far as approval of the proposed resolution, which is the piece that was just given us, we don't have to, we can, continue that part, but I'd like to hear people that are here to speak on the item, and I'd like to hear comments from the,
Yeah, that's
I'd like to hear comments from the commissioners
Yeah.
and from the council
Yeah.
and the presentation.
So this is going to be more like, well, this is a concept review anyway.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't really be taking action at this point. So. we're just
Madam Mayor, can I ask for, I'm a little confused. What resolution is being proposed today for us to
No, that's-
approve. I don't,
No, that's the
this is
existing
the,
resolution.
this is the resolution that was approved by the Planning Commission in 2001.
Yeah.
There is no resolution.
There isn't, yeah, we wouldn't take any action tonight anyway, so.
And if I could ask staff, what action were you hoping to accomplish from us at the end of tonight's workshop?
The applicant, in the staff report, there's the questions that the applicant has proposed to the council and the commission, which was, does the city council and planning commission support the craftsman architectural style for the future residential development and the proposal to create design guidelines to ensure a cohesive and compatible design of future homes? 2, which design alternative, A, B, or C, does the city council and planning commission support? Consider each design's potential impacts on existing trees and lot configurations that may require the issuance of a variance. And 3, does the city council and planning commission support the proposed vacation of the Tico Avenue public street dedication? 4, which roadway design alternative, A, B, or C, does the council and planning commission prefer? That was the applicant's questions to you, and that's what I believe they were hoping that you would address. The whole point of adding additional information was to give you some context of how the project was approved, and maybe there are some fundamental underlying issues, major issues that need to be addressed rather than just moving on to architectural style. And staff didn't want those to go unnoticed, and we do apologize for late noticing, but we felt it was important.
May I ask a point of question? They're asking to make, whatever, 7 or 8 legal lots, which they would then sell on the open market.
Correct.
What in the world architectural style? I mean, if I bought a lot in Ojai, thank you very much, to build a private home, why would I want to know I'm going to have craftsman style? I'd want the option to build anything I wanted. I don't get the craftsman style, why we have anything to do with this, nor is it at all, in the bit I have read, have anything to do with the color of the water or something. It's totally, what they have asked, I see absolutely no relationship to on the material that I have had a chance to read. Craftsman style on what? They want to sell lots.
Madam Mayor, as far as giving feedback on these items they would like feedback on, that's premature, I believe. There's a presumption that the Planning Commission is the body and the Council is the body is going to even approve the project. That's the primary question here, is whether or not we as a body are going to approve of the subdivision. So to be giving any sort of feedback on architectural style is severely premature, as well as whether or not we are in favor or opposed to abandoning TICO, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the items that I find are really premature and are the ones that I think are very important that we postpone to a date certain. And I totally agree that this has been an agendized item and that people have the right to speak and give their feedback on the project, and I'm more than welcome to that, and I definitely would like to see the applicant's proposal. But beyond that, I feel that it's inappropriate for this body together tonight to answer those questions that the applicant would like to have answered.
So I may need to provide a little structure to this. The people on City Council are probably not used to the way the Planning Commission works, but with a concept review, we take input from the applicant, we take input from the public, and then after we've had all that input, then we go around the table and we just sort of give feedback to the applicant. That's the whole point of a concept review. So the idea here is we'll get all this input, then we will express our opinions about things, and then the applicant can go away and come back with their proposal.
I think that's where the communication breakdown is that I find it inappropriate to ask for us to give feedback on the proposal the applicant gives tonight, because we have not had the opportunity to review these other documents that have been given to us tonight. So to be asked to give feedback on a project at this stage, I think would be inappropriate. But as far as them giving the proposal, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
And as far as people coming up with public comment, I think that's great too. But I think it's really premature and inappropriate. For myself, I will abstain from giving any comment because I haven't had the opportunity to get historical context with this project, which I suspect has a lot of history to it. Because I know in our community, any sort of CUP is not done lightly, and there was probably a lot of public comment with this CUP, and I really want to take it seriously before I step into any modification of a CUP that's been granted.
Sure. Thank you. Mr. Bless, did you have a comment or anything?
I don't have any problem moving forward with the concept review tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Chair
Mr. Blair.
Burke, I second that. I rather see the applicant's presentation before we start because I do understand it's a concept review and that's what we're here for.
Great.
So,
So can we hear from the applicant? Step right up here, state your name and address, and then,
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council, members of the commission. My name is Susan Petrovich. I'm with the law firm of Brownstein, Hyatt, Farber, Schreck in Santa Barbara. And I've submitted my speaker slip. Also with me here tonight, and as part of the project team, is TJ Gamble, representing the applicant, Bob Flowers, the engineer, and Patsy Price, the planner. I appreciate you allowing us to present tonight and not making us come back because we would like to explain our view of the project options and get whatever feedback you're comfortable giving us. We're also happy to come back, so thank you for that. We did want to remind the council and the commission that this property is already 12 legal lots. So we're not further dividing it. What we're doing is reconfiguring and actually reducing the number of lots, either to a total of 9 or to a total of 8, depending on which option ends up being pursued. So essentially, it's a lot line adjustment. We're using the subdivision approach just because it's more than 4 lots that you're adjusting, but it is essentially a lot line adjustment and a net reduction. With any of the options, there will be improvements to the Olive Street intersection and the local water system. And we propose to add a bioswale between any sidewalk or walkway and the street and along the rear of all the lots so that we can not only control runoff but also filter it before and allow what we can to filter, to percolate into the soil to reduce net runoff. And the engineer, Bob Flowers, is here to discuss any of this in more detail if you have specific questions, but the intersection itself will become more pedestrian friendly. The TICO abandonment is an interesting issue, and I was interested to hear the input and to receive the one letter we got from a commissioner remarking on this. I think there is a problem with putting a street loop in there. It's a fairly quiet area back there. In fact, it's a lovely little orchard and backyard for those gables units. Provides a lot of privacy, and putting a street through there, I think, would be a big mistake. It'd be difficult to police. You would have kids hanging out there. It'd be a great lover's lane or a great place to go smoke dope. It would just be perfect for that use. And it also creates a security issue, I think, for the gables, because if people can just drive back there and park their car and hop the fence, they could do that with impunity because, of course, it's a public street. They're allowed to be parked there. So it's kind of the same problem that people out in the rural areas here have with poachers. You know, if you've got a street, a public road, people will use it. And it really doesn't go anywhere. It just goes from the end of one quiet street to the end of another quiet street. So anyway, we do suggest that you give a lot of thought to that issue. So if I could start with option A, this is the option that includes the public street improvements. Of course, the pro of that is that it provides an urban street with curbs and sidewalks. It's obviously the most urban of the 3 options. No variances would be required, but that's because all the variances are being suggested for the other 2 options in order to preserve the existing trees. With this option, those trees would be gone, so you don't need an option for a variance in A because there's no trees to avoid. The con, of course, is that this is the most urban of the three in what I see as a transition area in the neighborhood to a more rural area with larger lots, more vacant land up there. This urban street just seems a bit formal for the area. You're going to have a more overall pavement. And then the cul-de-sac, too, could be an issue as far as being used by people to come and park at the end and do whatever they want to do. And this site does have some history of off-roading and other adventures by people, particularly as soon as the rain comes and it gets slippery and kids like to do wheelies on the lot. So it's already kind of been attracted to people who are looking for recreation. One of the other cons, of course, is the increased tree removal to accommodate both the urban street improvements and the property lines. And then probably from your perspective, the biggest negative to this proposal is that this would be a public street all the way from end to end, and you would get to maintain it. So with a private street, you don't have to do that. So option B is 8 lots with a private street options, a private street in the upper area beyond Park. A private street with 8 lots, option C being the same with 7 lots. The pro for these options is the private street means no city cost to maintain it. It also means less pavement, no cul-de-sac, so you retain that semi-rural character, and you have a nice transition between the neighborhoods to one side and the more rural ones as you go up the street and further up the hill. In this option B, all but 2 existing trees will remain. The variances will still be required, again, to work the lot lines around the trees. We did look at the idea of maybe jagging the lot lines, but that didn't seem like a very good idea for trees, especially because one day those trees ultimately will die, new trees will be planted, and it just looking over the long term, that doesn't seem to be the best way to design a lot line. The 8 units, of course, will increase the property tax revenue from the land. We still would propose a walkway, even if there isn't the formal curb, gutters, sidewalks of a public street, and we would still have the bioswale, but it would be less formal. We're thinking of more of a hard-surfaced path rather than a big, wide sidewalk. And then the variances themselves, we believe, can be justified to preserve the trees, because that is a special and unique circumstance that pertains to this property. If you don't want to preserve the trees, then that's okay too. We don't really need the variances. But we were trying to preserve the trees because they are mature and they do add an ambiance to the area. So option C is almost the same as option B. With the private street, it would require 1 variance for lot width, again, just to preserve trees. 1 less unit, of course, means less property tax revenue to you. I don't know how important that is, but it also adds 1 more unit of housing in a pleasant setting. So it's really, the applicant isn't wed to any of these options. We're presenting them so that we can get your feedback and your input as to what you think is important. We do agree with the staff that there is no need for a rezone. We're asking about the architecture because we thought you might be interested in at least knowing what the resulting character of the neighborhood would be. If you would rather let people come in individually, that's fine too. We just thought that given the fact that this is several new lots in an existing neighborhood that's not very densely populated, you might want us to have design guidelines accompanied by an architectural style. We want to thank you in advance for your input on our options and the pros and cons. We would also ask you to address the Tico Avenue abandonment And then if I could just speak briefly on the one issue that was in that addendum, other than the rezone, having to do with the recreational area in the Gables project. First of all, we're not removing any existing unit. We're just not building out to the full allowed build-out. And we're also not using the density bonus as a result. So this whole discussion of density bonuses and the recreational areas and that sort of thing, I don't think pertains to our proposal. There would be one lot there, and it would not have the number of units we'd originally proposed. So it will, I don't believe that we need to provide the additional recreational space. If we need to provide you with any kind of calculation in that regard, we're happy to do that. Do you have any questions of me or of any of the project members, team members?
Anybody have questions? Mr. Jagiellon?
One of the things I noticed missing from the package is the existing configuration of the 10 lots that are there right now. Where is that? Did you come with that?
Do we have that, Patsy?
Okay. I'd like to see that.
Perhaps we get that included. We're gonna have
You want that
this
right
come
now,
back.
or
No, I
just
don't
you
know.
want
Do we
it
need to
between
right
now
now,
and
or-
the next hearing? Okay, that'd
Yeah,
be great.
we'll have
Thank
this
you.
come back, and that would be a good
Sure.
thing to have in the package coming back. Ms. Smith?
Yes, thank you. What is preventing the Gables of the existing 10 lots from putting them for sale to, as private home sites to available buyers? What is preventing the Gables from, starting tomorrow, from preventing them from selling the, is it 9 or 10 available
12.
lots? 12 lots to buyers, and they could put up whatever kind of house they want. What is the purpose of this if they have legal lots and people can buy them?
I think it's because they were for senior housing.
Oh, so
That's part of
now
this.
It's
they
the-
have to modify the CUP that it can
That's
just
what this
go
is all
for,
about.
it can just go for market value housing. I see, thank you.
And
That's what
why
I
the-
thought.
And that's why the density bonus isn't being considered, or we can consider the fact that they got a density bonus when they got when the original CUP was approved, because it was going to all be senior housing. But now they're taking those senior housing away, so what happens to the bonus that they've already been given?
And that would be 20% bonus or 15%?
I think it was 20%.
20%, okay. So in other words, if they didn't want to do the bonus, they could put up 8 lots for sale.
Right.
And they can have done that for the last 25 years or however long they've had the land, correct?
Well, I'm not the one really answering, but it seems to me from just looking at the staff report that isn't it because of the fact that now it was, under the original CUP, it was senior housing, and it was going to be used for senior housing when it was developed, because it's not developed now. Is that correct?
Well, the reason why we want to retain some of the benefits of the CUP is we want to keep the Gables project as it is. But the lots were not merged out. They still exist. So to answer your question, this could be leveled and 12 houses could be built on it if you didn't want the Gables project. But of course, we want to keep the senior element. We just don't want it at the density. The market demand does not appear to be there for that density.
So you could, in fact, say that these houses had to be for 55 and over people? You mean as far as if you wanted to keep the density? In other words, market value, but people had to be 55 years or older?
Well, theoretically, I guess we could be coming back to you, asking to keep our full build-out plus these lots, but we're not asking for that.
Your full build-out and plus the
Yes,
lot?
correct.
Are you
That would
saying,
be
when
where
you
the
say your
density
full build-out,
bonus-
are you saying to me that the owners of the Gables might just level the Gables and use all their land to build housing?
No, I said they could. Yeah, to answer your
Could,
question.
Okay. So they would be
Straight
going
out.
out of the senior assisted care living business and just selling the land?
They could. They don't want to do that.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Yes.
Madam Mayor?
Ms. Clapp?
On page 3 of 7, under project description, it says, reduce the total authorized build-out of the senior living facility to 90 assisted living units with a maximum of 98 senior living residents. The 19 additional units that could be established would be created by dividing existing 2-bedroom and larger 1-bedroom units so that the existing facility's square footage would not be expanded. would you happen to know what the square footage of the existing two-bedroom and larger one-bedroom units are, and what you would anticipate that you would be reducing these units to? What square footage you would be reducing these units to?
I don't know that, I'm sorry. But we can answer that question, certainly.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful.
So you want the existing of the existing?
Yeah, these 19
Existing
addition-
two-bedroom and the proposed one-bedroom?
That you're
square
going
footage?
to, that you're
Okay.
requesting be reduced. I'd like to know what the existing, I would like to know what the existing square footage of those units is, and what the final square footage of those units would be if you were to reduce their size.
Got it, thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we have, I have a dozen speaker cards here on this item, and as I stated at the beginning, we have a 3-minute limit on comments, so I'd appreciate people sticking with that. And the first item is Bill Miley. So when you come up to the podium, please state your name and your address, and then that'll be part of the record for the meeting.
Good evening. I'm Bill Miley at 919 North Signal Street and have been there for 34 years. I have a couple of questions that maybe need to be answered before I go on. I'd like to present those. The first one is, how was the decision made to have a joint meeting which looks like the review and approval process is being short-circuited? Who made that? And when was it made? Nobody made it.
We've had several joint meetings like this.
I know, but who made it? Who decided to have both bodies together so the concept review was only presented once, so it wouldn't have to be presented a second time?
Yes, sir. Did you have a-
Well, maybe somebody got the answer.
So I think what happened is that the request came in to do it as a suggestion to be efficient, and we polled the council to see if they were interested and willing to do it, and they responded that they were.
Okay. I guess maybe Madam Mayor could, do you agree with what the city manager said, Madam Mayor?
This is a planning commission meeting. The city council is the visiting team. So I'm going to give this right back to Mr. Murray.
Thank you. So I understand that the applicant requested that we have a joint meeting like this. Apparently, it's more efficient for them.
Oh, okay. Well, since we've been talking, last night we were talking about accountability and who makes decisions and where they're made and such. I think there's an issue here that maybe we ought to explore in the near future. Okay. What are the development rules that were accepted for the original CUP besides the density bonus? And I'm going to ask, I'm losing my time asking questions, so I haven't said anything yet. So if I'd like to have more time, please. So what were the development rules that were accepted? I think we should know that. Of what?
Pass that to Bill.
Extra copies of what?
That's the
That's it
existing
right there,
CUP.
Bill. You can have my copy.
Now, do all the people in the audience have this?
This is an existing, that's an existing CUP bill that was
Okay.
approved in 2001, so
All
it's
right, okay.
it's in the record.
Okay. Okay, number one. I've looked at the materials on the city I've looked at the city website materials. Go away.
Sherry, can you reset that, please, for Bill?
Okay, makes me nervous. Okay. And I'm familiar with the Gables physical layout, as you know, I've been there for a long time. And also I currently have a Saturday class on improv, comedy improv, that I'm taking at the Gables. So, and I've done other things that we have friends at the Gables. So I'm really familiar with that. Okay. And I remember in the past that intersection of Signal, Summer, and Grand comes out close to an F. It's one of the worst intersections besides probably Park and Grand, or maybe Signal and the Tillaha. So it's a bad traffic area. And we're going to end up with 2 T streets where we're going to have 7 new houses, 10 traffics per house, 10 travel traffics, trips. We're going to have 70 trips coming out of there every day on T streets. That's very dangerous. So I question the traffic analysis. I don't see how you can use a non-existent development and say, well, they would have had lots of traffic, and now since they're not going to be there, we're going to have less, so there's no problem. I don't understand that. Regarding the character of the zoning, medium-high density, most of the residents North Signal are single-story. Well, they're all single-story, I think, maybe from one, except that big one at the top. And so I don't see that a 2-story development is appropriate in this area because the surroundings are not 2-story except for the 8-unit building on the corner and apartments down Signal Street on South Signal Street, north-south Signal Street. Community needs an appropriate zoning. With the Ojai Valley having a higher percentage of older age citizens than other communities in the valley, in the county, zoning for future population, community, city benefits and needs seems to be a priority. We're going to give up this land, and if we need more senior housing, we're going to have to put it on the Carty property, which we already told them they can't do. Okay? I'm sure that the general plan has such policies and guidelines that would support my statement. The original 2001 approved CUP proposed for expanding the current facility should be seriously studied before deleting it and creating a housing subdivision of high-end houses. The community needs should be a priority, and we should make sure that that doesn't get discarded. The Gables is a recognized institution.
Bill, I think your time's up.
Geez.
Thank you.
Well, let me.
We have a number of other people that want to speak.
May I have
though.
10 seconds more, please?
10 seconds.
Okay. The Craftsman style is really inappropriate, and I don't know where that came from. We don't have any Craftsman style there except one over by Steve Olson's house. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miley. Next speaker card I have is for Bill Wyrick.
I have some questions, because I don't have a set opinion, but I have some questions that just occurred to me relative to the community as a whole. First, I think it needs to be noted that the proposal as a revision to the CUP from potential to potential represents a 31% drop in senior housing availability, potential to potential, and about there was about a 30% lower employment level than was originally contemplated back in '01. And I believe the Parsons Group owns the Gables of Ojai LLC. They have 6 other properties scattered around the country. It seems to be a pretty well-run, privately held family company based in Santa Barbara. And the Gables LLC dates, according to the Secretary of State records, from 2000. So apparently, after a purchase or reorganization, they apparently contemplated this expansion and asked for it and got it. And I understand that the point being there was that there was lack of market demand, which I find curious given all the anecdotal talk in the community about all the waiting lists to get into the Gables. So I find it fascinating that there apparently is not sufficient market demand to drive what was a significant amount of housing expansion. I also, want to reference the 2014-21 housing element that was just adopted in order to preserve, page 56. In order to preserve the city's future capacity for residential development, the city will continue to enforce the zoning ordinance adopted in the prior planning period, requiring that existing residential development potential be preserved by prohibiting downsizing or requiring the payment of in lieu fees based on an inclusionary housing factor of 15%. I don't know whether that applies or not, but it's a question. The other thing I find interesting is that if you look at the Parsons Group website, one of their services they provide, one of their goals apparently is to provide low-income independent living. Quoting them, we believe every senior should be able to age in place with dignity and security regardless of their economic status. With local partnerships, not-for-profit, and public agencies, we are able to provide affordable housing and services to seniors in need. I wonder if there might be some, in a positive way, some creative discussion with the ownership about going back to expanding the senior housing and some sort of partnership that would make sense for their investment capital and meet the need, which I think is there in the community. So I just wanted to make those points. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wire. Next card I have is from Steve Velke.
Good evening, everybody. Steve Velke, and I'm actually the other person that has a Craftsman, so Craftsmans are a good thing. I like them. I'm actually the direct neighbor of the Gables, so I'm at 708 North Montgomery. Thank you. I get a lot of comments on it. It's actually one of the oldest houses in Ojai, and I really cherish it. I've had it for 10 years. I want to say that I think the Gables has been a very good neighbor. I think they're good people and they do good things for the community and the citizens that are part of it. So I am a supporter of them, and they've always been very good to me. I did want to raise the one issue of concern that I have, which is the traffic on the street. So if the game plan, if I understand correctly from the lawyers, is to expand the number of units within that 701 North Montgomery space, I expect that's just going to be more traffic on the street. And I have a particular problem that's really never been addressed except with the help of the OI management or the Gables management, that people park in front of my mailbox. And if people park in front of my mailbox, my mail does not get delivered, right? So when I'm there, I chase people away. I try not to. When I'm not there, the Gables folks chase people away usually. But to the extent that there is going to be an expansion, and I'm certainly open to and supportive of it, I would just ask that I work with the lawyers to maybe come up with some proposal or something with the city that would allow that space in front of my mailbox, which I believe I own anyway, to become a red zone so that we could at least avoid having people park in that space. So that really is my major comment, honestly, that it is something that is peculiar to me, and it's something I've been struggling with for years. And to the extent there's going to be an expansion, I'd really like to work with the City Council, Planning Commission, and the Gables to see if that can be resolved. But I'll tell you, as a neighbor in the community, they've always been quite nice and very responsive to any issues I've raised. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
I haven't seen anything which indicates that there's going to be any expanded use over on the Montgomery Street side, is there?
No, in fact, there's going to be.
It's all on the
there's
other-
going to be more denser use, but
Right.
not an.
There is, because there's 19 more units, they're just smaller.
Right, yeah, they're smaller, denser.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Next card I have is from Bill Shanbrun.
Hi, Bill Shanbrom, 260 France Circle, directly above the property. Just a couple things I want to draw everybody's attention to at this table. One is, it does, I think you have to look carefully at the Tico Street abandonment, because when I talked to the, I've been trying to get a meeting with the city to talk about this, and they told me to talk to the consultant. Called the consultant, and they told me to call the city that they're no longer on the project. So I'm getting a little bit of this circular thing, and I think everybody here needs to give the citizens more time. We haven't seen what's in front of you, and we all need a little bit of time to get our comments together and get back to you. I did talk to the consultant, and he mentioned that that Tico Street abandonment may very well be why they're saying that they can put 8 houses up there, because then that goes from 2.2 acres, which is on your maps as current, to 2.8. So that if the city abandons it, I think that does have something to do with it. They can address that, but I think that's what I got from the consultant. Also, everybody's talking as if this has been an approved project. And I just want to make sure, the applicants have talked like when we do this project. I just want to make sure that the city is very clear that, that the applicant has no vested right to develop those lots. I don't know of any vested right they have to develop those lots, and that it's at the sole discretion of this group here. I have a lot of things to say, and I'll try to keep it as brief as possible, and I'll write a letter on this. Under the current CUP, those lots can't be sold, is my understanding, because they have to put a parking lot there. So when they say this, we could sell these 12 lots right now, they can't. I don't know why they would say that. The most important thing I want to note here is that the CUP itself was issued in 2001. Everybody's talking as if this is a modification to the CUP. I'd like this group to look very carefully to determine whether this is indeed a modification or whether the CUP, since it was done in 2001, is really no longer valid. And I'll just tell you what the original CUP states under section, on your page 8, number 5. It says, the permitted use herein, described herein pursuant to the provisions of Ojai Municipal Code shall be conditioned upon the privilege being utilized within 180 days after the effective date of approval and stated below. If such privileges are not utilized or construction not begun within such time limit and carried out diligently to completion, the conditional use permit granting such privileges shall become null and void. So if that's the case, they certainly haven't built out like they said. They certainly haven't built the parking lot. I would say you start with a brand new CUP because it's null and void and you have no legal right to work off the old one. Further, and I'm out of time, but further in, please look at page 2, number 3, because it states what the original intent was in the CUP, which was for seniors, and that was what it was done for. And also on page 3, number 5, it also states about the need for senior housing and why that was part of the project. Okay? And please give us some more time because we don't know what you're looking at. We got notice about 10 days ago, and everybody's kind of scrambling to try to figure out what's going on in the project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just want to run and get my glasses.
Oh. So I have a card here from Bruce Canvasser. Not on this issue. I'll put you in the other pile. Donna Sallin.
Donna Sallin?
There we go.
Hello. My name is Donna Sallin, and I first want to say thank you to Rob for stepping in and sort of getting, I don't know if I could use the word getting rid of consultant and taking on hands-on matters, because I feel that we're a small community, and it's really important that we have faces and people that we know that we can speak to. Bill and I sort of spoke together and kind of covered a few things together, so what I'm going to say is probably similar, but I live at 220 France Circle, and we've been there 15 years, and we love the Gables. They're great neighbors. They've been wonderful. When we purchased our property, I'm really aware of zoning. I'm really aware of conditional use permits. I've stood up here before and put one through from helped my husband with his animal hospital. And we operate on a conditional use permit. There were many, 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 many buildings that we found more intriguing than the one we're in because they had bigger parking, bigger space, et cetera. But we were told over and over again by the city that we don't do zoning changes. I'm sorry, Donna, and we don't do that. So you have to find a building that fits within the need of what you're doing. So we did, and we're happy there. But I just hope that the city is consistent with what they grant to who they grant to, and understand that I believe that. When we purchased our property, we went before the city, and we were told that nothing could be further developed at the Gables, that they were fully developed, and that there was a deed restriction on the property for further So I did some research and did find the deed restriction, but of course, lo and behold, it's expired in 2008. I find it interesting that a deed restriction, typically they run with the land, but this one is expired. I don't know, I've never seen a deed restriction expired. And then interesting enough, when I was doing further research, I found that the conditional use permit stated in there that, if all the different items hadn't been done, then it was therefore null and void. So I do agree with Bill. I think there's no really revision of the CUP because I don't think there is a CUP. And also I do want to talk about the off-street parking, which there is none. It's never been completed. I know I'm getting close. And also I think the city of Ojai granted the original conditional use permit and the conditional use permit in 2001 because the city of Ojai stands before the community, behind the community, and encourages our seniors and our community. And to now all of a sudden say that's not important any longer, we don't really care, forget about the 57 parking spaces, forget about the parking lot, forget about the build out of the additional units that we asked for before that we agreed to, now we want to scrap all that, put in single-family dwellings, and make it a tract. It's going to be a tract home because we're going to say that they all have to look alike, which I don't oppose Craftsman style because I have one, but I just feel that a lot more what's the word I want? A lot more preparation here has to take place. And again, I came completely prepared to talk about a zoning change because we live in a low-density place, and to sort of pass through a high-density zoning, to me, is really, it's a deadbeat street. It's like never going to happen. But then all of a sudden, the applicant walks in and gives everybody new information and says, scrap the zoning change, scrap the tree removal, we don't need anything, and we could just build whatever we want to build. So I'm just hoping that the city is consistent with everything, and I'm all for it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Helm. Pete LaFollette. Okay. Thanks, Pete. Judy Murphy.
Hi, my name is Judy Murphy, and I live at 218A Grand Avenue, which is actually facing Olive Street, and this is very much in my front yard. By the way, speaking to that, I did not get any notification about this proposed project. Nothing. A neighbor told me about it. Okay, I'd like to make 3 quick points about this change. The Gables is a spacious, gracious, and well-regarded facility that provides peace and serenity to its residents and to its neighbors. As the baby boomers arrive in our society at their later years, it will be increasingly important that we have senior facilities to take them in. The 2001 CUP authorized the facility to expand from 98 residents to 142 residents, with an increase in personnel from 37 to 54. This new request increases residents only by 19, and it does so by reducing the living spaces that those people live in. And I have friends there. Those living spaces are not big. It also obviously reduces the parking lot, which is very important. That's a very congested area, and the Complete Street folks are going to be looking at the Gables parking and the whole Grand Avenue parking and how busy that is. So I would not like to see the Gables area reduced for seniors in order to provide 7 or 8 new single-family market price housing. I've read the Ojai general plan, and it's primary focus is to preserve our small-town character and to maintain compatibility between the built and the natural environments. It says new developments must respect the city's small-town feel and fit in with the existing land use patterns. And I'm quoting here, preservation of existing mature trees in place. They've been taking those trees down since 2008. Retention of a feeling of openness and preservation of views of the hills and the mountains which form the Ojai Valley. If those residences go in as proposed, we will lose our view of the Topa Topa Hills and the treasured Pink Moment. It requires, the general plan, I'm still on that, requires that the bulk and massing of new structures relate to the prevailing scale of adjacent development. The adjacent homes are modest, they're single story, and we do not want to see McMansions built across the street. As such, I believe that if the Planning Commission and City Council approves any development in our neighborhood, the homes should be modest, one story, and as few as possible. The current zoning for this parcel of land is low density, or 3 homes per acre. Changing the zoning or the variances or whatever the jargon is on our one-block street will hugely increase the traffic on our street, and that exits out onto Grand, which, as you all know, is already a problem area for traffic. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. I believe this next card is for Orville Tucker. Is that correct?
Hello, I just have a couple of brief comments. I happen to own the home that's directly across the street from this proposed project, 711 Olive. It's a corner lot, park and Olive. And my concerns are that, that's been open space up there for a long, long time. And any building that goes there, from my standpoint, I'd like to, of course, like to see minimal. I'd like to see the street, as this project or any project goes forward, I'd like to see the street, if they come in to do the proposal and they're going to make these lots, when they go to put them in, I'd like to have all the utilities. I'd like to know if the utilities are going to go in for all of those units, or they're going to be underground, or is it going to be overhead utilities. I'd like to know when these lots are sold, is there a time frame that these lots are going to be sold and the homes built? These are all issues that are going to affect me, because the street's going to get tore up like happens around here in Ojai all too often. Somebody comes in and builds a new home, they tear up the street, they come in and replace the pavement, and then, by George, a year later, here comes someone else comes in and builds, and there goes their, it's just never ending. And, because we just moved up there, I happen to live, my wife and I just moved up there at 7-Eleven just this year. I've lived at 501A North Montgomery, which is just down the street from the Gables. And I can tell you there's the traffic problems up there on North Montgomery Street, Grand Avenue, and that area up there are horrific. We've had 2 automobiles wrecked backing out of our driveway at 501A from people coming down North Montgomery, because people that work in those areas up there, Los Robles and those other facilities, they park their cars right down to our driveway entrance. A lot of the vehicles are 4-wheel drive, trucks, vans. We can't see up North Montgomery. You ease out, and we've had 2 cars wrecked on our driveway at 501A in the last 10 years. And so my concerns are parking, of course, and the added traffic. And that's along with the utilities and so forth that are going to have to go in at our new residence. So that's pretty much what I have. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Tom Murphy.
Council members, Planning Commission, and staff, thank you very much for letting us give our comments tonight. Most of what has already been said are concerns that I have, so I'm not going to repeat them all. But there is one very important one to me, and that is when we brought our property with 2 homes on it in Ojai 10 years ago, we were told it could never be rezoned or subdivided. Okay. Now it appears that you have been asked to make as many as 24 lot boundary changes to accommodate the Gable project. I'm not too sure if this is just because of the way times are going and this is appropriate, but in my personal feeling, I do not believe, based on what I heard 10 years ago, that this should be allowed to happen, to put 8 homes across the street from us. I love Ojai. This is our 10th year, matter of fact, this month. So please keep that concern in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your brevity. Kitty Wynn.
Good evening. I live at 214 Grand Avenue, and what I have to say has already been said much more eloquently than I can, but my concern is traffic. The people to the east of me and my neighbors to the west of me have to back out onto Grand because of their parking situation. I don't have that, but when I pull out, there are sometimes trucks and cars, and I have trouble seeing, just as you were told happens, on all of our streets. If these 8 houses have 2 adults, I would say that's probably 16 cars. And if they have some teenagers, that may be 20 cars. So you're adding a lot of traffic to one little tiny street. So I hope you all think about that and consider our safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our last speaker card is William Ulrich.
William Ulrich, 487 Gridley Road. Not to be terribly repetitive, but I have a question specifically for staff and specifically the city manager. Why is this 13-year-old CUP that was not built out or developed after 180 days still, why was it agendized for tonight? And why, specifically, the chair of the Planning Commission and the mayor, did not anyone even question this, since obviously the agenda is developed by the city manager and nobody even looks at it, apparently. So that is a question. It's on the table. Mr. Clark?
Did the chair want me to respond?
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Chair and members of the commission and city council, we always encourage people who are making development proposals to consider concept review. The reason for that is that it costs a lot of money to prepare plans for a project, and if they're going off in the wrong direction, that would be a waste of money. So the purpose of concept review is to give them a check to see whether they're on the right track or not, so that if they're in the wrong track, they can correct it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pay to play, however. This in the development business, it costs money to go. I think everybody understands that. And at this particular point, I believe this CUP, which is terminated according to the city ordinance, needs to be resuscitated via a new CUP application. Having said that, I also wonder why the Rincon Consulting Report, which is riven with the typical inaccuracies, gaps, and inconsistencies, is being used by the community development director as part of this presentation. I'm just going to leave that as a question in the air rather than one that will burn my speaking time. And finally, why is Rincon Consulting not present? The community development director, in making the use of that presentation materials and their work product, which is as usual inaccurate and shoddy. The city's relationship with Rincon, I understand, may have been terminated, but their most recent work product is nevertheless incorporated in this presentation. That's not acceptable, as usual. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hillard. That is the end of my speakers cards, but this is a public hearing. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this matter? Okay. Well, I think that pretty much concludes our meeting at this point. If I understand the will of the council, we aren't going to take any comments at this point, and we will just have this item come back at a future date.
Chair Merck, if I may, I do want, well, more than anything, I do have some questions about the process. And coming into this meeting, obviously there was last minute information given to us, and that was, we requested more time to look at it. But with the comments of the public, I would like to really look into to see if the CUP is really valid or not, whether we have to have this meeting then. The purpose of the concept review is, in my understanding, that we're coming here just to hear a concept, and whether they want us to ask certain questions doesn't matter. It matters what we deem appropriate in this valley. Now, also in terms of process, I do also understand, and we talked about this last night, that we do post things on the agenda, we post things, we do what we're obligated to do legally. Is that right?
Yep.
And I guess last night at the council meeting, I just want to share this with the public. We understand that even though we're meeting legal requirements, that is an issue in this community. And as a council, I guess we're more than anything wanting to look at that and see if we could invite the public. So I just want to clear those questions up, because I know because of prior issues, you know, they're questioning whether we're advising the public or not, but we are aware that there is a glitch of communication, and then also it is, I guess, a fair question to see if the CUP is valid. And I don't know if the community development director knows.
Okay.
Can I answer that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so the quote that was done a couple of times from the information given tonight about how something expires is kind of a reiteration of our municipal code. And the municipal code says, they use the word exercised. What I'm always familiar with is the term inaugurated. So you have a permit, you do have to exercise your entitlement within 180 days. That's true. If you don't, you can ask for an extension, but exercising means that you pull a building permit. You do something. Here's the building permit file. All of these little manila cards in here are building permits that have been pulled by this applicant, okay? So the last one that was pulled was January 3rd, 2014, and you just go back and you can kind of see they're consistent. It was the way the project was approved back in 2001, which allowed this kind of ongoing phasing of this entitlement. So my research says, if you look at the second paragraph, it says, additionally, if after construction commencement work is discontinued for a minimum period of 180 days, the entitlement shall expire and be deemed void. But you can see they've consistently pulled permits and consistently, diligently worked towards compliance. I can't go back and change what was done in 2001 as far as the leniency that was given to them over the length of period of time, which I think is a little unusual, but yes, it's still valid. That still doesn't, I don't believe, changes the issue on the floor, which is whether or not something of this magnitude would be considered a modification or a whole new project. I think that still is a valid concern by the public, but this particular permit is still open and valid.
Thank you. I also wanted to bring up, as far as noticing, because this is a concept review, we have kind of a different process there. If this was an actual application for something, we would notify all the property owners within 300 feet, but for concept reviews, I think typically we don't do that. Is that correct?
I think we need to ask Sherry that question. Sherry, did you do the noticing for this?
Yes. Concepts reviews do not require 300-foot radius noticing. However, the applicant decided they would like to get the neighbors' input, and so we did mail out 300-foot radius.
Thanks, Sharon.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what continuing this concept review necessarily is going to do for us. If there's a legitimate CUP, there's a legitimate CUP. It doesn't include what they're asking to do now. If there's no CUP, well then, it doesn't include what they're asking to do now. I personally would like to have some input from my fellow council members as well as the Planning Commission as to whether or not we really want to encourage this applicant to move down the road of further development work, or whether we think that it really should be limited to senior housing in that area. I think that's a key question that we have to answer. And it doesn't make any difference whether it's Craftsman or how many lots there are or anything else. If we as a group, at least as a cursory review, which this is, want to give the applicant some feedback, I think the feedback that would mean the most is whether or not we think it's appropriate to have market rate, single-family dwellings on that road versus some sort of a development which is going to expand the gables for additional senior housing. I, for one, have some real concerns over or not we want to overburden that area with single-family dwellings. I think that that area would be overburdened with the project as it's being proposed. And we are very concerned about senior housing in Ojai, and I think that's an appropriate place to expand our senior housing units rather than with market rate housing.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Clapp, yeah. How do you
I have a
feel about that?
question about Highway 33 policy. It wasn't addressed in the staff report, and I was wondering whether or not this would even comply with the Highway 33 policy. Are you familiar with are you not familiar with that yet? That's okay. Mr. Clark, you may.
Yeah, I don't think I can answer that either.
Yeah. Is anyone here really familiar with the Highway 33 policy? Because I have a cursory understanding of it. Is somebody else more well-versed in it that could explain it?
I think it's addressed in this traffic report.
Bill Myler.
Bill, do you know the Highway 33 policy? Because I'm thinking that this project may not even comply with the Highway 33 policy. That's my...
Yeah, my understanding is we cannot add any additional trips on the Edison curve.
No, that are peak hours.
Yeah, peak hour trips.
I don't know what the shift hours are.
Yeah, so, yeah.
If we cannot add any more traffic at peak hours, when I read through this, I don't know what the shifts are at the Gables as far as what time the caretakers leave and the housekeepers, whether it's 7 to 3. So, I mean, yes, if they added additional staff for caretaking.
I'm talking to houses, a single-family house.
Well, that wouldn't involve additional caretakes at peak hour trips.
Yeah, but I'm wondering how that would fit into the Highway 33 policy.
I don't know. Excuse
Paul, are
me.
you familiar
Well,
with
there's
There is a traffic engineer's report, and maybe the applicant should be asked to address that.
Right. There is.
Would you like to respond to that? Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Susan Petrovich again for the applicant. There is a detailed traffic report that goes into an analysis of that policy and found that there was no impact because of it is peak hour. It is not total trips.
Thank you. So I'm not sure where we stand now. Councilwoman Clapp, are you okay with us proceeding with comments, or do we want to just table this whole thing to a future meeting?
I'm comfortable with everyone else chiming in and going with the majority.
All right. Yes, Mayor Strobel?
I agree with Councilmember Blatz. Maybe if we could just go around the table and get an idea as far as preference, senior housing versus market rate, if there is a preference. That's somewhere to start. That's some information that might be helpful.
So perhaps we will go around the table and just sort of have comments on things. So let's start with Commissioner Foster.
Well, my first impression was what the applicant was asking for comment on those last three questions about design and guidelines and general appropriateness for lot A, B, or C. I think it was presumptuous in terms of not getting, there's so much more information behind this project, this proposal, that is somewhat obscured. The first thing I noticed, along with a lot of you, was there wasn't a CUP. The original CUP wasn't attached to our folder. So like you out there, we had no idea what was going on, and we just got this information probably about the same time you did. So I think that incites us to move forward by looking more closely at what the facts actually are that we're dealing with here. So that gives us a bigger picture. Because one of the things that came to my mind was what's happening to the senior housing, what's happening to affordability. When you're talking about straightforward market value housing, there's some serious questions there that need to be entertained.
Thank you. Councilmember Blatz.
I made my comment. I'm concerned over the fact that this is market rate housing in an area that I think should be affordable senior housing, at the very minimum senior housing, and hopefully affordable senior housing.
Thank you. Mr. Jagiello.
Yes, I'm more concerned about understanding the original conditional use permit and the makeup of that, the original lot lines that were there prior, and how they're going from that to what they're proposing now. So I'd like to hear more from the applicant myself and get more information while we have them here.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Laura?
Yes, thank you, Chair Merck. I was hoping that the presentation would answer some of my questions that had to do with the CUP, why they wanted to turn those lots into family dwelling homes at market rate versus our providing homes for senior citizens. That was my ultimate concern too, considering what we've talked about, the housing element, and also about affordable housing. It was very the opposite direction of what we've been talking in general about the goals of the council. And then my other question was hoping to get some more public comment, which we got tonight, wanting to reach out and see what the neighbors wanted and what it's just a collaborative thing. So those were my concerns. I just think that they weren't answered in the presentation. I was hoping that we'd have some type of visual of the options maybe on the screen. I've not seen them, but there's a lot of detail, but the ultimate question is housing versus senior housing. So
thank you. Our newest commissioner here, Rosalie.
So just want to reassure the members of the public that we just met in our pre-meeting yesterday, and we discussed all the things I think that were brought up. These were all questions that came to our mind as well. We wondered what the why of the applicant's motivation was, rather than jumping to aesthetics and design, where's this coming from? And whether or not, of course, we should have a discussion about what's best for the community. What do we want to see in this community in terms of how we provide for our elderly, how we provide for everyone in the community. But I do think that everyone's bringing your concerns to bear while we consider this.
Thank you. Councilmember Clapp.
I still have my initial concern about having documents that I need to review before I feel comfortable making comments. And I really do feel it's important to get an answer on the Highway 33 question. The changes in between the original CUP and the one that's being proposed, I would like to see the lot lines, everything that are in that original CUP in order to have a side-by-side comparison, because there's really, it's extremely difficult to figure that out. And I think the question of senior housing and what the original intent of the original CUP was is extremely important to address in our considerations, which again is wanting to review that first. And why is it being changed? Is it really best for the community? And what I've heard tonight from the neighbors is really important to me, because that whose impacts it the greatest on is the citizens. And I'm really glad that they came forward and express their opinions, and I really want to take time to think about all of this, rather than proceed tonight with any sort of a vote on whether I feel that this is an appropriate project to proceed with in its current form.
Thank you. Commissioner Nicklin.
Yes. Well, we have a lot of issues on the table tonight, a lot of concerns. We've had a lot of people from the public come in and talk and give their concerns, and I've actually made notes of everybody's concerns for review. I think the issues with the CUP, I would like to investigate that more carefully, the lot line adjustments that's been brought up. And then my major concern is, you know, we need senior housing, and I think that's what that's my where I'd be leaning to. So, and you know, I have other concerns too, but I'd like to research more closely before I voice those.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
Would you mind if I interjected one thought that I neglected? There's one other thing that I just realized is really important to me, is the reduction in the size of the existing units in order to accommodate more seniors. The square footage really does trouble me. To cram older people into, 250, 350 square feet or 450 square feet is degrading, and I want to make sure that this is indeed what's going to happen with the reduction in the size of these units, that we're not dehumanizing our seniors by putting them in these unacceptably small units.
Thank you. Now, Councilmember Smith.
I agree with a lot of the issues that have been brought up. I think we have to keep in mind that the Gables of Ojai LLC is a private for-profit business. If these are legitimate lots and they have the CUP has been active, they could proceed to ask, for these lots to be to sell them as is. If they want the lot line adjustment and everything else, well, that's a whole nother issue. And as the lawyer who represented the Gables of Ojai LLC, they could have every right to raise the Gables as it exists and put in whatever they want there on their property. So I wouldn't like that to happen. I welcome them as a neighbor. My mother and my mother-in-law were both there. But we have to keep in mind that they have to look at their bottom line.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Mayor Strobel,
if I may just add something on that. Sorry, it's already interrupted. Also, in looking at all this and thinking about it, I was intrigued because of the senior housing, hoping that something could be developed there that could assess a need. So my thinking also was not just to how could I word this? Not just to voice my concerns, but also give them the opportunity to see that in this community, not only do we need senior housing, but affordable housing. And I didn't know if that was an avenue that they were willing to listen to or not. And if they are, I understand they're a private LLC, they're for profit. So I guess that was just in back of my mind, also seeing if they're willing to kind of go back with the community's needs. So sorry.
No problem. Mayor Strobel, do you have comments?
Thank you. I'm gonna answer first my initial preference for this particular land would be to develop it for senior housing. That's my initial preference. My preferences are not in stone. I change them. I change every day. But that's my initial preference, my initial reaction, is we have a land, it's already geared towards seniors. I believe we have a need. I would like to see it developed for seniors. And I'm going to leave it there. As far as this being a joint meeting, I'm going to say that yes, I request that this continue to be a joint meeting because we are reviewing a concept review. The reason it's important that, to me, that we have a joint meeting, depending on what happens with an application, a project, if it goes one direction, it will just go to the Planning Commission for approval, whatever. If it turns out to be to require a subdivision map, that has to go to the City Council. So there's a possibility that it might, at points in time, be required to be reviewed by both bodies. So for that reason, yes, with the concept review, I'd like it to continue to be a joint meeting. And when it comes back to us, in the packet and available to the public, I would like us to make sure that we have letters that have been submitted, letters, emails, communications. And one communication that I received is from Paul Crabtree, who is a commissioner. He's not here tonight. But he had some very, very good points. And even though he's not here, I would like his email included in the packet so that everyone can review it. The same with Bill Miley. I received an email from Bill Miley that listed several points. Whether I agree with the individual points or not is not important to me. I want to be aware of them. I want to at least consider them. You know, we've heard several questions tonight. I would like us to have a little question answer sheet. The questions that have been brought forth by members of the public tonight and by council members and commissioners. If we could prepare a little fact sheet question and answer, I think that would be helpful, and include that with the packet. And the resolution which establishes the CUP, we have it. We received it late, and this is just for me, but when someone hands me something after I have arrived at the meeting, I take it and I put it at the back of my packet, because I already know that I have not had the time and will not have the time to review it. So it's not even a consideration for me. So if you want me to consider it, make sure I have it in time to do so. So that's why I wasn't too concerned about the resolution, because I had already dismissed it. I didn't get it in time to review it. It's not part of my consideration. And I'd like to have the staff report updated. We're bringing this back in-house, and I would like to see your fingerprint on this. And that's it. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Glass?
I just have one comment, and then I'd like to hear what the chair has to say. I think that from this point forward, the future of a conceptual review is from the applicant. I mean, they've come, they've asked for our opinions, we've given them our opinions. We've told them we have a lot of questions. Isn't it up to the applicant to say that they want to have a further concept review, not us? I mean, we've given them our opinions as we have it tonight, and that's it.
Thank you. I was on the commission when we approved the CUP back in 2001, and the whole idea of the CUP was to allow the Gables to expand fully on the property that exists right now and allow additional senior housing, and I think it's imperative that that be done. I hate to disagree with Councilmember Smith, but I don't really care if they're making a profit on this or not. the CUP was there with the idea that that whole property would be developed as senior housing. And I'm actually really offended by this proposal, because as far as I can see, the city's just getting screwed over for no particular reason other than the profit of the owners. So I hope that we can stick with the original CUP. And with that, we're going to take about a 10-minute recess here because we're going to rearrange the tables and everything. So we will reconvene at about 7:55. So we put off the public communications section until this part of the meeting. So I have 8 speakers cards here for the public communications section. I think we need to be fairly strict about the 3-minute rule on this. And also, if you agree with the comments of a previous speaker, you can just get up and say, I agree with the previous speaker, which will save us all a lot of time. The first card that I have on my list here is Pete LaFollette. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Thanks. Pete LaFollette, 999 East Ojai Avenue. We are still, fortunately, we're still a small and thoughtful community, and we share common concerns. The heritage here in this city and this valley, it comes from a careful decision-making process of common public interest. And that decision-making process was and continues to be vital to the quality of life here. When these challenging decision-making projects come forward, it's really important not only to bear that in mind, but listen out the community and the residents of community voices, and choose the path of least resistance. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have a card from Bruce Canvasser.
Thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to make a few comments about the cell tower. One of the main issues is the incomplete application that will now be passed upon you. And I've heard many people agree that it was an incomplete application. The neighborhood, it's not just the neighborhood. I've also heard some comments. It's more than the neighborhood. The first Planning Commission meeting here, there was over 100 people here. And now there's even more. We're talking about, in a residential area, we're talking about a tower 6.5. We had issues about 2 stories, which I can understand how people feel, but we're talking about 6.5 stories high on a flat land, which all of our houses would see. We're talking about a tower in a marsh area that wasn't on the report. We're talking about less than 50 feet from a school, and we talked about senior citizens that we're concerned about. Well, we're also concerned about the children. And we talked about home values. 3 realtors, one I don't know, 2 I knew, came in here and specifically mentioned that they were sure how that it would affect property values and even renters to rent those homes. I'm hoping that you can at some point in time drive by the area, look at it, see how a 6.5-foot tower would affect us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next card is William Ulrich. Is he still here? I'll save his card for later. Michelle Thomas. Still here? Yeah. We'll go with Michelle Thomas.
Hi, thank you again for hearing me. I wanted to thank, I understand we have 2 new commissioners and I'm new to this, so thank you to them, thank you to all of you. I ask that you please represent us, we citizens in the whole valley when you're considering this issue. We've heard comments about the Gray Gables, our view shed, our small town character, our vision. These are also issues that apply to the cell tower that they want to place in our quasi-public open space behind my house. There's lots of quasi-public spaces in the city of Ojai that are surrounded by neighborhoods. We need an ordinance, which I know people have talked about, but I'd like to know when we're going to get working on that. I also really want to know, when is this issue going to be formally heard on your Planning Commission agenda? Again, I'm asking this. So
it's causing huge stress for all of us. And also consider the fact that this will only be the first if this gets in. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. We don't have a date yet for the AT&T is going to come back with an application at some point, but we haven't heard from them yet as far as a date, so it's not something we have any control over, is what I'm saying. Yeah, well, I think they're trying to come up with some nice way to say, oh, we want to do this right here. Next one is Michael Francis Smith.
Again, I want to thank you all for hearing our concerns and comments and for the more open feeling that there is here at the Planning Commission. I want to particularly thank you, Commissioner. It really feels like we've been in a big family fight. And I grew up in a large Italian family. And my Italian mother used to sit us all down around the table every Friday night and say, okay, what's the matter, you? And go around the table one by one. I wish we had her here to do that for us. It does feel like the family fight might be subsiding, that you might have really heard how upset we were about not being heard, that you might have heard how upset we were at not being granted our due process. This is a marvelous community. I'm new here. I know we all know how special it is, but it is worth the passion that we are all feeling. And I, for one, have really turned the corner. I've been very angry about this, but meeting with my neighbors and my new friends here in Ojai, there's not a doubt in my mind that this is going to go through. Because I know the resolution that we have amongst the neighbors, we won't stand for it. So there's quite a bit of organization going on behind the scenes. Citizens are really stepping up. So if you wanted more involvement from the citizenry of Ojai, you did the right thing, because here we are. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. We have a card from Raymond. I'm sorry, Mr. Raymond, I can't understand his last name here. Sims? Simsma? Oh, Dr. Sims. I'm sorry. I should have known. You got to put the doctor in the front there.
Dr. Ray Sims, 1202 San Ramon Way. I've spoken in front of you before. Thank you again. Just to say I agree with everything that's been said before. Ojai is indeed a special place. My family and my wife's family have been here for 50 years plus. And I think that there is a basis for the Planning Commission to reject the application on a couple of other points. One is a lack of truly existing need for more cell service now. I don't think that's been adequately demonstrated. And also that the location of alternative sites has not been fully presented. My wife and I have had occasion to talk to a number of people in Ojai who would be very willing to have the cell tower, if necessary, to be placed on their property, which is basically farm and citrus property that don't have proximity to other people. I think other things that were in the report that was prepared were inadequate. Noise pollution was minimal, but actually there's going to be noise pollution at night when we're all trying to sleep near this thing. The pollution of diesel fuel and testing on a monthly basis, and of course the removal of mature trees on the existing property has to be considered. And yes, there really is a wetlands on that property. If you've been here long enough, you remember when it rained really hard. We had frogs in that area for several months, and lots of birds, including herons and egrets, which still come around. So I'm urging you to please reject the application and hope that we can have an ordinance that will help prevent this from coming into such residential neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sims. And Sandy White.
Hi, my name's Sandy White. I live at 1213 San Ramon Way, which is the neighborhood right adjacent to where the proposal, the cell tower is being proposed. I was here last evening and spoke briefly, and is it Bill? Gave me a little tip. So I went to the website and I reviewed what the Planning Commission calling is. And it says it's acting in an advisory capacity to make sure future developments are congruous, that the vision of the city leaders and citizens is realized by thoughtful planning of public and private buildings, public spaces, and parks. The Planning Commission is dedicated to ensuring that Ojai maintains a unique characteristic. And for those reasons, that's why I live here. That's why I choose to live here. I think that's why many of these people here choose to live here. And a proposal of a 65-foot, 12-antenna tower in my backyard just does not maintain the unique characteristics that I live here for. There's been other things that the city has done recently, like reduce the use of single-use bags. We've long had the tree to protect mature trees. Things like that are ordinances that I have grown to expect and respect in this city. And so when you come up, I'm completely baffled by the fact that we're actually even here today considering such what to me seems preposterous proposal. So I'd like you to just recognize what your calling is and to recognize that the community, myself included, does not agree with this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ted Miller.
My name is Ted Miller. I live at 574 Los Alamos, several hundred feet from the proposed cell tower. I want to stress a couple of points that have been made, all of which I agree with regarding the cell tower. One, we have been in a state of uncertainty since we got a letter on December 27th and told we had 3 days to comment. We are now told that the deadline for acting on this proposal has been extended until the end of May. We were ambushed the first time this proposal first surfaced. We don't want to be ambushed again. And I would implore you to let the community know what the plan is. When is this proposal going to be considered again by this commission? How much advance time we're going to have to look at it and comment on it so that you have the benefit of all of the community input. And you've heard a lot of it, and we're very grateful for your willingness to let us come and you might say badger you, and that's not our intent. We really respect what you're doing and your service to the community. But as you can appreciate, this has cast a dark cloud over our neighborhood and beyond our neighborhood. And so I think that transparency would be very welcome. But because of the uncertainty and because of the dark cloud, you don't need to wait until the end of May. Sandy White said it, I've said it before. This application was defective the day it walked in the door. It is defective now. It should not even be considered. It should be rejected. There is a requirement in the code that there be alternative sites. There are none in that application. And why it is being given the opportunity to be fixed or amended without any community input to the process behind closed doors is unfair, it's unseemly, and it's unnecessary. And even beyond the defect in the application, the record that has been presented to you when we first appeared before you several weeks ago, to the City Council, the letters, the petitions, all of the materials that have been submitted demonstrate that this application cannot satisfy the requirements of the city ordinance that you all are obligated to evaluate and apply as you're considering the application. So I would implore you, on behalf of the community, on behalf of a nursery school that's been in this community 50 years and is likely to go out of business because of the uncertainty surrounding it, it can't get financing, to please look at this application, act on it, reject it. If there are going to be hearings, let us know when so that we can be here and give you thoughtful and informed comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. We have another? Last minute card. Oh, Donna Sallin. Still here, okay.
Well, I had to stay because I
You might as well.
about this.
This is
So,
the really fun part of the meeting.
My name is Donna Sallin, and I live in the city of Ojai at 220 France Circle. And I think that this is the same city where my son's school teacher strapped himself to an oak tree in Libby Park because they were, we're a city that we don't destroy things. We don't cut down trees. We don't put up 65-foot cell towers in the middle of a neighborhood. Has anyone here ever heard of the magnetic field in your head? I mean, I have a guy that only will buy property in the city of Ojai where he knows there's certain specific magnetic fields. And it's a true statement. I suffer from migraines, and maybe this will make it worse. I don't know. But I think the question is, why do we need it? Did I miss that part? I don't know why we need it. Everyone has a cell phone. Mine works. I don't care if it doesn't sometimes. But to change the characteristic of the city of Ojai and the beauty of which we live for an AT&T cell tower, I think it's sort of I think it's a non-discussion, but thank you. I reject it in case you didn't get that.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. This is public hearing. Does anybody else want to speak at this point? Bill Warwick, jump right in.
Thank you for the opportunity. I forgot to fill out a card. I'm sorry. Chairman Merck, I have a suggestion, and I have be real quick about it. And I have spoken to a number of people about it, including our new community development director, who I think is off to a great start, by the way. Over the past 3 community development directors, I think all of you at times have been surprised by directors' exemptions. This might be a perfect opportunity at this time to, on a future agenda item, consider looking at some guidelines. Or maybe procedures where a director's exemption, if it's contemplated, is perhaps noticed to the chairman of the planning commission, and that person exercises their discretion as to whether they think it ought to proceed or ought to come to the full planning commission. Just something so that none of you in the future have the experience of going, oh, I didn't know about that, why didn't I? That you maybe all have experienced. And I think it'd be a great way just to, without recrimination or accusations, just improve the communication and operation of the interaction between the community development director and the planning commission. Just a thought for a future agenda item.
Thank you very much. Anybody else who would like to speak? Bill Miley. No meeting would be complete.
Calendars, Bill Miley. Calendars are really important for all of us. We look to the past to see where we've been and what we've done, and we look to the future for what we intend to do and sometimes miss. So I've said this before, and we talked about this last night at the special meeting. Developing a calendar or a chronology of this whatever it is, okay, cell phone tower application, and having it posted through one of those nice circles on your website. Go to the Planning Commission, and then you go down to AT&T, and you click on that, and then this nice list comes up where Mr. Mullane took the application, he sent it back, or whatever, down to the present meeting, and to the May ending, and what's happening, indicating at some point that the application was not complete at one point, although apparently a previous planning director who was interim said it was, but it wasn't complete. It was missing alternative sites, and it was missing a noise thing or air contamination by diesel thing. Should be listed there. So we see it all. We know what's going to happen in the future, when it's going to happen, as the gentleman said. I think it's time to do that chronology and get it on the website. And then, like you folks did with the night sky ordinance, you said everybody in the city by resident, a notice telling them about it, telling them what to expect and how to manage your license and such, and who to call if you have a question. I think we should let everybody know how to use the website and that they can expect this kind of information there. I think it will really help a lot. So, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Myler. You still have some time left here, too. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Thank you. My name is Bruce Garber. I live in the Upper Ojai, and as probably most everyone here knows, we struggled very long and ultimately failed to have the radar tower removed. And one of the issues, of course, that was most important to the people up there, and I know is the most important to the people who are going to have this tower perhaps put in their neighborhood, is sure it's ugly, sure it's this, sure it's that, it's the health issue. They know it. And we knew it too, and we raised tons of money with the help of Rich Larry Hagman, and we had hired a very nice legal group, and we went to court, and the judge threw it out. He said, "The health, you can't use the health issue." And I know this is the dilemma for the city council and for you, and I don't know what to say about it, because if you can't bring it up, and this is what I put in my letter to you, that even though the FCC considers any level below that threshold safe and will not allow the health issues to be part of the approval process, we still have, I ask you and the city council to make sure you reject the approval, even if you can't do it openly, because this is what my neighbors care about, their children's health. And if anyone was around to see this great film that was at our theater a few days ago called Take Back Your Power, the evidence, the health evidence is just growing and growing and growing of EMF, of people being subjected to EMF. And I know that my neighbors on Grand Avenue, this is their main concern, and it's a big concern. But I don't know what you can do since the FCC will not allow this, and they didn't allow us up in the Upper Ojai. But many people moved out after that, and we also took measurements, and there were many places there that were way above the IEE standards, but we were not allowed to bring that up in court. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak while we're in this? Come on up.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Well, I don't know. That gets into a whole gray area.
I'm the emotional one, and I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm too tired.
You got to just let us know your name and.
Lorianne Sims, married to Dr. Sims, on San Ramon Way. We're 200 feet from the tower. What exactly is going on? I mean, you tell us tonight, I think, maybe I'm not hearing anymore because I'm so tired. I can't sleep. AT&T, they've pulled out. Is that what I heard you say? They're coming back? They're going to reorganize this? What is the deal here? Because I think maybe I'm the only one that's confused. I thought this thing was going forward because we had, coming to the 150 days, and then that was extended because if we run out of time, then they come in here and do whatever they want. So where are we with AT&T? What exactly is the story? Do you know what the story is?
I'll find out in just a minute.
Because I think I don't really want, and I don't know whether my fellow neighbors do, I don't really want them coming back here with a new proposal to us. I don't want them saying, well, we're going to stuff the stuff into the eaves of the church and put it into the tower, because that's what these people do in other places. Churches are the place where AT&T goes to put these cell towers in. And they'd be happy to rebuild that church in order to make it strong enough to support all of the stuff that they need to do. So I'm just concerned that we're going to be visiting a time when they're going to come back and say, well, now we're going to lower the height, we're going to do all this, when we need to know what we're facing. Have they told you that they're changing things? That's what I need to know. And I'm concerned because I want to be able to stay in my house. But I can't stay in my house if that thing's going to go in, and he can't keep practicing medicine here. So a whole lot of people are going to lose their doctors. A whole lot of people at the Gables aren't going to be very happy anymore. I'm serious. So I just need some answers, and I think those answers would help a lot of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else want to speak at this point? So Kathleen, can you give us any kind of an update on the AT&T, or maybe Rob could?
So I can't give a total, complete response, obviously.
Yep.
But I can say that I'm very sure that the city council is hearing everything that the community is saying. And they approved a tolling agreement or an extension of time in order to make sure that a full hearing before the Planning Commission occurs. And there's also time for an appeal to the city council after that. And I know that the council very much wants to get this on your docket as soon as possible. Mr. Fletcher indicated last night that the special counsel that's advising the city council is endeavoring to make sure there's a very strong record upon which you can make a decision. And I think that's about all I can really say. So that's my response.
Thanks, but we're waiting at this point for AT&T to come back to us with an.
I don't exactly know how that will come out, but I'm very sure, unless they completely withdraw their application, that it will come to you for a public hearing in time for an appeal to the city council before that May 30th deadline.
Okay, and at that point, we'll have the report from our consultant as well, as far as.
You'll have a full staff report and a full administrative record, and the comments that the neighborhood has made have been very helpful. And all of that will be before you, and then you'll take an action, and of course your action potentially is appealable to the city council by either party, actually.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, Ms. Sallin, why don't you come up here so we can.
Can I just point it out? Can't you just say no?
Yeah, it's better if you come up here. And it's
Can't you just say no? I mean.
Yeah, we have AT&T has
So
a
when
right to come and
AT&T
present
comes
something
in,
to
they
us.
presented, this is the first night that I heard any of it, so that's why I had the questions.
Yeah.
So they presented something to you, and then.
Oh, yeah, you should have been here. It was great.
Yeah, no. I'm glad it was. That's all. I just wondered.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am. Do you want to, why don't you come up here, and that way everybody watching at home can see you, you know?
Inez Canvasser, and I live at 1119 Paseo del Robles. And my question is, which I tried to ask last night, but I just wondered, when an application does come and it is incomplete because they did not provide alternative sites, that is, that, you know, we should have a choice. So that's, I was wondering how an application could be accepted without those alternative sites being brought in.
Yeah, I think that's something the staff is going to make sure we get in the next application.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Can I make one other comment?
Sure, why don't you
I'd like
come up here
to
just.
ask again. Obviously, Rincon study was flawed. When are we going to get a new study, an environmental impact report study that actually looks at our neighborhood and looks at the community? Is this going to happen soon?
I don't know if we're required to do an environmental impact report for this, or just.
So the CEQA review, whatever level that is part of the report that comes to the city council. So one of the things that the council has to do and the public can comment on is the adequacy of the CEQA review. So that will come to the Planning Commission with at the time of the public hearing.
Yeah, so that'll be part of the next, when they resubmit on this.
How many more months of this?
I don't know.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to move on with our meeting here.
I just have
Yes, sir.
I have a question
Speak
for
carefully.
staff.
Oh, yeah.
Rob, I thought there were two alternative sites that were recommended, and one was Figueroa Road. I remember seeing that on a document.
There were a number of alternative. Well, I think in the report there actually was one alternative site that had been suggested, but there are a number of other alternative sites that have come forward as a result of the public input as well.
Yeah.
I remember on the original documents, there were two sites. It was Figueroa Road and another site up in the East End somewhere.
There was a second
in the
site.
orchards.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right. So we're going to move along with our meeting. The next item on our agenda is the consent items. And this is approved by a roll call vote in one motion. And would anyone like to?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Planning Commission from January 15th, 2014.
Thank you, Stephen.
And I'll second that.
Wait,
Hey,
that's
Lawrence?
February 5th, you mean?
It says 15th on
Oh, no, February 5th?
Oh, it says January 15th.
Wait, are you looking at the minutes? You're looking at the minutes.
On the next page.
Consent item minutes.
No, go to the agenda. The agenda, at the
very
beginning of the,
That's February 5th.
Yeah, it's the 5th.
your agenda, at the very, very front of your binder, or the, underneath the plastic thing. Yeah,
There you go.
Okay.
sorry.
I do. Okay, so I'll amend that. We adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of the Planning Commission of February 5th.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I will second that amendment.
All right, could we have a roll call vote on that, please?
Zimbala, or Zabilla?
Sibylla.
Zabilla.
What are we doing?
Say yes or no. Voting on,
Yes.
oh, you can abstain
I can
because you
abstain.
weren't here.
Oh, I wasn't
Members
here.
have to
Okay.
Abstain.
Very good, sorry about that, Zabilla. Nicklin,
Yes.
Chair Merk,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Jagiello.
Yes.
No.
No.
No,
Abstain.
abstain.
Okay, thank you. If you're not, just to a learning moment, if you aren't at the meeting of the minutes that we're approving, just say abstain. Okay, thanks.
Abstain.
Thank you. Did we have a MAC meeting on February 17th? Commissioner Foster, you're down to,
I wasn't slated for the
all right.
last meeting. Am I up for the next one, or? Okay. Oh, it's the first time I don't recall ever seeing that or being notified now.
And I don't see a representative of the MAC here, so hopefully we'll get a report at some future date. All right.
Check that one. Yeah.
The next item is a public hearing item, an ordinance entitled Water Efficient Landscaping Standards amending Article 12 of Chapter 2, Title 10 of the Ojai Municipal Code. And I understand that we would like to continue this to the March 5th meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is
All right.
correct.
We need a motion to continue this.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Jump
I'll
right in.
second
Melissa.
it.
All right. Could we have, is there any discussion on that? Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Zabilla,
Yes.
Nicklin,
Yes.
Merk,
Yes.
Foster.
Yes.
Jagiello.
Yes.
All right. Director's report.
The following decisions were made to, on 815 Foothill Lane, remove one hazardous coastal live oak, and at 722 El Paso Road, pruning and fertilizing of 7 coastal live oaks, and that is all we have to report for this reporting session.
All right. You want to report on code enforcement activity as well?
I think that the list in here is excuse me, somewhat self-explanatory. We continue to have active code enforcement. Also, I don't know if it's, I'm looking to see if it's on the list. Sherry, is the last couple ones that we've done just recently on this list too, with the emerald iguana and those issues? They are, okay. So, just, there's nothing really outstanding other than, the only one I can think of that's really noteworthy is the issues with the emerald iguana. We're working with them. And they also have some revisions to their permit coming before you that will be forthcoming.
Thank you. I assume we're making progress on these because the print is getting bigger on these pages. They used to be really little tiny print, and we had to.
I think we have a very good team that's out there working with the public and being pretty consistent about follow-up on code enforcement. So I would say, just in the short time I've been here, I think that they are kind of working their way through resolution.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Future agenda items.
Let's see. I'm sorry, I just turned that off. Changes to the village mixed-use zoning and a recommendation regarding second unit deed restrictions, I guess. Are there things slated for March 5th? Oh, and the same thing that you were continuing tonight, I'm sorry, the landscape water efficient ordinance. And that's all I'm aware of.
I have a question.
Thanks.
If
Yes,
I
sir.
may. The recycling, what's happening with the status on that, please?
She withdrew her permit. I think we received the letter today, wasn't it, Sherry? Staff worked with the County of Ventura, not their planning division, but their division that is their like property management. And we worked with her to find, they were very helpful, and they brought in help of Ojai, and they made kind of a collaborative effort, and she's now over there working on the Baldwin Street site, which I guess is known affectionately as the Honor Farm. So she's working through them. The permitting will be through the county. I did some outreach to the state of California, the recycling people up there at the state, and they were willing to consider that site of service to all 4 of our convenience zones. Convenience zone is a specific term that is used for the buffer that exists around each store, full-serve grocery store within the city of Ojai. So there's 4. And even though that site tends to be only within the 3-mile rural radius of Vaughn's, they allowed it to service all 4 of us, all 4 of our grocery stores. So none of them will be getting letters of penalties of anything like that, okay? Also of particular interest to this particular recycler is that if you're within a certain distance, the government or the state of California also provides subsidies to the recycling business. And so they also were willing to grant that to that particular individual as long as the budget of the state of California still provides these subsidies. So it seemed to be kind of a win-win for everybody. And so she has now applied to withdraw from Bryant Street, and we're working to close out that application.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I noticed the Emerald Iguana is on a future date. I've gotten a couple of phone calls from one of the neighbors, and they keep saying, when is this going to be on the agenda? And I haven't been able to give them any definitive answer. Do we have a date for that?
So the iguana is, I believe, similar to many projects within the city that, staff continues to have to work with them to get a complete application. And so there's some deficiencies still in their application, and as we've heard tonight, we usually just don't take them forward until we have a complete application, and I believe the issue is traffic at this point.
A second incomplete item was mailed last week, and we gave them a deadline to respond by March 12th, I believe it was.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Now, we don't have our esteemed subcommittee commissioner here, so I don't know if we can have any subcommittee reports. But Councilmember Clapp, it's time for our city council liaison.
Good evening and good job. You guys are doing a great job. And welcome Chester and Rosalie. And I guess we have a lot ahead of us, but I think we're working together as a team really well. I'm really glad we are meeting together like this more. I think it's really helping us have a more continuity in what's going on, and that's really appreciated. Aside from that, I really have nothing to report. Thanks.
Thank you. That, I believe, concludes our meeting, so we're adjourned.